Ever imagine your investments like more than doubling in just a year?
Yeah, that's pretty impressive. Not many can say they've seen that.
That's exactly what happened with Bitcoin in 2024.
Oh, yeah, Bitcoin had a banner year.
Bitcoin investors, I should say.
Right, right.
So we're going to be looking at some data from Creative Planning. It's an independent wealth management firm that tracked how different assets performed throughout 2024. And out of all the major asset classes, think gold, the NASDAQ, S&P 500, you name it, Bitcoin was the undisputed champion, boasting a 121% gain.
Yeah, that's a big jump. It wasn't just a fluke either. 2024 was a year with a whole bunch of factors that really boosted Bitcoin's appeal.
So let's unpack some of the key drivers. For instance, remember back to the U.S. election. Bitcoin was kind of hovering around like $67,500 on election day, and then bam, after Trump's victory, it just skyrocketed to an all-time high of over $108,000 in December.
It's pretty crazy when you think about it.
It is. Why do you think that is? What caused that?
Well, I think a lot of it has to do with the perception of Bitcoin as a safe haven asset in times of uncertainty. You know, when things feel shaky, investors often flock to assets that they believe will hold their value, and increasingly they're seeing Bitcoin as that kind of safe haven.
That's really interesting. So it's almost like a digital version of gold in a way?
Yeah, exactly. Gold is often seen as the classic safe haven asset, and it had a pretty good year too, you know, up 26.7%. But Bitcoin completely outshined it.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Even the NASDAQ 100, which is known for being very tech-heavy and tends to grow quite a bit, gained 25.6%.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they're good gains, but it really shows that Bitcoin was in a completely different league.
Totally.
And, you know, what's interesting is that this incredible 121% gain in 2024, it actually wasn't even Bitcoin's best performance.
Right.
Back in 2023, it surged by a massive 156%.
That's right. It really shows how much momentum there is behind Bitcoin.
So what do you think contributed to the big gains in 2024?
Well, there were a few major things that happened. One was the launch of multiple Bitcoin spot ETFs. This basically made it easier for everyday investors to get involved in the Bitcoin market.
Oh.
And then there was also the Bitcoin halving event, which, you know, it's a bit technical, but it essentially reduced the rate at which new Bitcoins are created, making the existing ones more valuable.
Yeah, could you break down that Bitcoin halving event a little bit more? I think it's one of those things that a lot of people hear about but might not fully grasp.
Sure. So halving is an event that's actually written into Bitcoin's code. It happens about every 4 years, and what it does is it cuts the rate at which new Bitcoins are created in half. So in 2024, it was the fourth time this halving happened.
Okay.
Now, this is really important because it creates a kind of built-in scarcity. And as you know, when something becomes more scarce, it tends to become more valuable.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So it's like a controlled digital version of gold mining, where the more you mine, the harder it gets to find new gold.
Yeah, that's a great analogy. And that scarcity, combined with, the fact that more and more people are starting to accept Bitcoin, it's really driving a lot of the excitement around it.
So where do we go from here? I mean, with these gains in 2023 and 2024, is this kind of growth sustainable?
Well, that's the question, right? I mean, some analysts are incredibly optimistic. They're predicting Bitcoin could reach hundreds of thousands of dollars per coin.
Wow, really? That's a pretty bold prediction. What are they basing that on?
Well, one of the main arguments is that as more institutional investors like hedge funds and asset management firms enter the Bitcoin market, the demand will just continue to outpace the supply.
Okay.
And that will drive prices way up. And then on top of that, you've got all this global uncertainty right now, you know, political instability, economic turmoil, and that's probably going to push more people towards Bitcoin as a safe haven.
That makes sense. But, you know, Bitcoin has also had these wild price swings in the past. I mean, it's not exactly known for stability.
You're right. It's definitely not for the faint of heart. And that's why it's important to remember that there's another side to this story.
Right.
There are plenty of people who believe that Bitcoin is just a bubble waiting to burst.
Okay, so how do you make sense of all this?
Well, you've got the believers who see Bitcoin as the future of finance, and then you've got the skeptics who are warning about a potential crash.
So it sounds like we're in a bit of a tug of war between those two perspectives.
Yeah, pretty much.
What would you say to someone who's maybe a little hesitant about Bitcoin? Someone who sees it as a risky gamble.
Well, like with any investment, you gotta approach it carefully.
Right.
Understand the risks. I mean, it's still a relatively new asset, and its future is uncertain.
Yeah, and there are so many factors that could influence its price, like government regulations, new technologies, even as we've seen political events.
Absolutely.
It's easy to get caught up in the excitement, but you've got to do your research.
Right.
Assess your own risk tolerance. Maybe even talk to a financial advisor.
I think that's great advice.
So even with all the uncertainty, there's no denying that Bitcoin's made a real impact on the world of finance.
Oh, absolutely. It's a force to be reckoned with, that's for sure.
So it's been an incredible journey so far, exploring Bitcoin, its performance, and its potential impact. But before we wrap things up, what do you think is the most important takeaway for our listener? What should they be thinking about as they navigate this exciting but complex world of cryptocurrency?
I think one of the most important things to remember is that Bitcoin, even with all the hype, represents a big shift in how we think about money. It's a currency that operates independently of governments and banks, and I think that's pretty revolutionary.
Yeah, it really challenges the traditional systems.
Exactly. And, whether Bitcoin succeeds in the long run or not, it's definitely sparked a movement. This whole technological revolution is changing how we view money and interact with it.
Right. So we're talking about things like blockchain technology, which has applications beyond just cryptocurrency.
Yeah, for sure. We're seeing it in things like supply chain management, even voting systems. I mean, there's a lot of potential there.
So it's bigger than just the price of Bitcoin.
Right. It's about the broader impact.
And it's just going to keep growing in the years to come.
Absolutely.
So I think even if someone isn't ready to invest in Bitcoin yet, it's definitely something to keep an eye on.
I agree.
It's moving fast.
Yeah.
And it's going to have a big effect on our lives, whether we're directly involved or not.
Yeah, I think that's a great point.
Well, this has been an incredible journey diving into the world of Bitcoin, its performance, and its potential impact on the future of finance.
It really has. It's been a pleasure talking about it.
Thanks for joining us, and to everyone listening, keep those minds curious, and we'll catch you next time.